Three, two, one. You're in the room. Hello. There we go.
Hello, 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 hello. It is actually not starting anytime soon. It is starting now. Welcome, everybody. It is the final.
Ho, 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 ho! Merry Christmas!
There you go. It's the last one of the year. And we're doing something slightly different this year.
It is a fun, festive episode, haven't we?
Yes, yes. Well, there's like a lot of things at the end of the year. I always like the review program and stuff that they put out. So we thought we'd have a little rattle through. We've got with John today. Hello, John.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing? I'm all Christmassy. I've got my hat on. This should light up, but when I pulled it out of the box, I kind of pulled the battery pack off, so no lights on my hat, but it does jingle if you can hear that. There we go. And I've got my Christmas mousse on as well. There we go. There we go. Getting very into the Christmas spirit.
Yeah, we're happy and we're ready to go. And if you're joining us on live stream on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, or no, sorry, X, formerly known as Twitter. Hello, we keep an eye on the comments and stuff there, and hopefully next year we're going to be a little bit more high tech in bringing it to a proper live stream, where we'll be able to bring in your live comments as well. So we're going to do 12 blazes of PMO glory. For people who have joined us before, you'll remember at the end of each episode we do a little blaze of glory about what it is we've been talking about. But what we wanted to do this year is to look at what we've been doing this year, and also finish up on what the trends are, or what the trends are for 2024 in PMO. Without further ado then, taking us right back to January 2023, actually
Seems like a long time ago now.
Organize month. And what we actually did back then was get people to share some of their top tips and things, I've completely forgotten about this. So yeah, it was again just thinking about some of the things that we do as PMO professionals, and keeping on top of things and getting us self-organized. You can see there in the chat and in the comments, you'll be able to go back and have a look at January if you wanted to. But these are just some of the things that we were talking about as to top tips. I suspect these have changed a bit as well, John. Do you reckon, as you've gone through the year?
Oh, yeah. It's quite funny going back and sort of looking at what we were using then, what's changed over the time. It's such a variety of things. Some of these are like, oh yeah, I was really I find this a lot with processes, certainly where it's sort of personal organization things like the ones you're sort of flicking up on screen now. I'll kind of go through waves. I'll be in a phase where one of these is really, really useful to me, and everything I'll use it for. So like the Eisenhower technique that we saw there, or Trello, and I'll be using them religiously. And then you kind of fix the problem that you're using that for, or you move in with another client and things change, and you kind of forget those processes drop off and you bring in new ones. So it's quite interesting to see what was clearly massively important for us in certain months of the year, and how we've moved on.
Yeah, that one there, what's sitting there now, is anything tool-wise just feels a bit. It's moved so quickly, hasn't it, this year, 2023, in terms of the stuff that's happening around AI and generative AI and all that kind of jazz.
It has, and all the tool, and every single tool now is like I mean, we saw it, I think, first with sort of Keto were very fast in after ChatGPT was sort of saying their PPM tool was sort of very, very AI, and now everything out there it says it's AI, regardless of kind of what's actually going on under the surface. I think every marketing team for every single tool out there has taken the view that if they don't have AI in their strapline, no one's going to look at it. So everyone seems to have thrown a splattering of AI in their marketing spiel, and are probably trying to catch up and make it look a bit AI behind the scenes afterwards. So it'll be interesting to see how that matures, I think.
Oh yeah, and there's a session. Our last session of the year is coming up on Monday lunchtime, which is about positive steps in AI for PMO people. As you'll know, we've been trying to get it down to a level of how can we actually do some of this stuff, and what are some of the first steps. So again,
I think that'll be a great session because I mean we saw for those of you that were here for the last session we did will recall we did a quick poll of everybody. I think half the people that attended were actually using AI tools such as ChatGPT in their PMO at the moment. There's obviously quite a few that still aren't, so I think that session's going to be a great one just for people that have been playing with it or people that haven't used it at all, just to get their heads around what it is, what some of the use cases are and benefits are for PMO. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sitting back and being a participant of that one, Lindsay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then it was into the month of love for some people, and this was a little bit of a love for ourselves. We did some of the hots and nots and stuff. This actually came from one of the hots, which was just about. We were doing a lot more focusing around self-development and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, House of PMO is big into all of that kind of thing, but this one was pulled out from something that I'd done quite a few times before in my previous life around recruitment around PMO people and offering guidance and career stuff, getting people to think about SWOTs and how you can use them in the different forms. So again, it's not something that many people think about in terms of there's a lot of different tools that are career related tools to help us look differently about what it is that we do. And this particular one, I mean, you can use a SWOT for all sorts. I mean, I've done it with people to get them think about how they create and update their CVs. This is people use them for marketing activities and stuff like that. But this was a specific one about trying to help to identify some skills gaps, because obviously House of PMO with its PMO competency framework and all of that stuff, it was very much about, February. We're coming out of the deepest, darkest month that most people in the Northern Hemisphere don't particularly like. And let's start to think a little bit more about our own development as we go forward into 2023. I'd love to know if anybody's actually done some really good stuff working on themselves in terms of their development. Let us know in the chats and stuff and comments. We really love to hear how people might be doing some of the stuff we talk about here at House of PMO. Yeah. So that was my hot and not at the hot at the time, but into March, it was Knowledge Month. I bet you can't remember this, John. We were focusing purely on knowledge, and one of our favourite things is the PMO spanner.
I love the spanner one because I think it sort of reinvents. Because I mean, up until March, I had been using spanner purely as an abusive term for people, and this session completely changed that for me. Because obviously, you were talking about it being looking at the sort of boundaries of teams, how we actually look for the gaps between projects, look for the gaps between teams, and saying that the PMO is actually plays an important role as a knowledge broker in between those teams, acting as a sort of spanner that sort of tightens those things and makes it all run smoothly. I love that sort of analogy, and it's changed my perception of the word spanner ever since then, for how I've used it for the rest of the year.
I know. Well, we focused on knowledge in that episode, but one of the other things about this is that there's not a lot of decent research, proper research coming out of universities and all that kind of stuff that is about PMO. So when you get one, because I'm scanning them all the time, by the way, I've got access to all the kind of universal journals and stuff that come out, scanning to see if there is stuff around PMO, and it's few and far between. But because this one actually has got some really good stuff in it, and if you remember, you can get into the library, look up Boundary Spanner and PMO Spanner and or this article here, and what we do with these when we find a good one is break it down, tell you basically what we think is really interesting or useful that are within it, because I don't know about you, if you've read some academic papers, they can be a bit dry. But yeah, if you've seen any, if anything's come across your desk that you think is a really good piece of actual research, let us know, because we'd love to obviously share that with everybody else. So yeah, that's the Boundary Spanner was a good one. And then we're into spring and a bit of light relief. Anybody remember the PMO pets? We started being a bit, oh, come on, let's like pose with them. It was actually to try and win a ticket for the PMO conference. But, this is what I really love about this community sometimes, is that it's not just about you. It's also about those lovely creatures that you spend your life with. And look at those beautiful creatures. I mean, not so much the cats. Bit of a more of a... But there you go. I mean, look at that. They all like, let's share the love. looking at some of the, merch that you might have. And if, by the way, if you've not got any of the merch, there is a shop, and at the very least, get yourself into some pick and mix on the stickers and stuff. We've added new stickers all the time, and just literally up in the shop in the last few days are some of the new stickers that have come for purposely for you lovely PMO practitioners north of the border in Scotland. So yeah, we like to have a bit of light relief as well, don't we, John? Really, it's this PMO stuff can be a bit too serious sometimes.
We do. We had I was working with a new PMO analyst with one of my clients this year, and she saw that I had some of the sort of House of PMO swag. I had the cup and stuff. She's like, "Oh, I really want some of that," and I was able to. I had some of the swag from the Edinburgh conference. So yeah, I left a bag of goodies on her desk, and she was very, very happy. And she's been proper PMO branded ever since.
People also use them for like PMO away days or something, and then like give them out as prizes and stuff. So that's good. So we were into May. So already it's feeling a little hot, hot, hot. Anybody remember? It's International PMO Day. Yeah, it was the first time that we launched it. It is the second Tuesday in every month. We're not going to do it as a fixed date, as it were. It is now available and up. If you were to look at the website, the go-to website for international days and national days of celebration, you know the ones like National Fried Chicken Day and National Go to Work with a Bag on Your Head Day, those kind of things. You'll find amongst the fun ones, there's obviously serious ones. We are actually recognised now. It is there on that website. So International PMO Day, first one we did, really successful. And there's Alan. Look, Alan, you're on the call as well. Look at you. You shared that on the day because you were pulling pictures and stuff together that were being shared on the day. People sharing their cakes, and people were having team days and doing webinars, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. And I've got to admit, Lindsay, I mean, I'll be on it. Well, you know this, but for everyone else, I'll be completely honest. I rolled my eyes when this was sort of talked about as yet another one of these days that people superficially mark, and it probably wouldn't, for me, it wouldn't have gone any further, except I also got dragged along by Lindsay and everybody. And I'm a convert to this. I think there's two quite exciting benefits for this. Firstly, inside an organization, being able to just make that moment for the PMO and sort of bang your own drum. PMO is always one of those teams that the fact that we did that kind of servant leader thing, we're in the background, greasing the wheels, being spanners and all those kind of good things for the organization. But it's not often that people turn around and praise the PMO. So actually trying to having a day where we make a point of sort of recognizing our PMO and the amazing work they do, I think is great for our teams inside our organizations. But the other thing about this is there's more and more different organizations and groups and communities popping up in the PMO space. There's been even more this year sort of that have appeared. Some have disappeared since watching that flow, but being able to get everyone sort of coming together for sort of one day where it is you guys talking with sort of America's team and everybody, all the sort of thought leaders and ideators in the PMO space sort of coming together and aligning. I think that's also really, really powerful as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I just remember what you said there, John, about the first one. It was really nice to see organizations using their social media and actually tagging in their PMOs. I think that one there in the middle, that organization actually put in a post from their own corporate LinkedIn account, actually calling out their PMO, which were lovely. So yeah, brilliant. And to get your thinking caps on. We're going to be obviously doing stuff at House of PMO as well. But yeah, it'll be second Tuesday in May, and so we'll be back later on in 2024. And of course, for us, yes, it is. It's June. We'll not sit on that for too long. And we opened up this year with an interesting one about it. Was saying that the PMO rest in peace, which is perhaps not a title that you want to go for opening of a PMO conference.
It was a bold start to a PMO conference.
What did you think to this one? Because he had a lot of stuff in this that was quite like food for thought. But
I've gone back to it a couple of times. Like you said, there was a lot of detail in there, which was quite nice. I like the way he sort of started off with that premise of it. It felt real to me because this is the real life conversation that I have every day, and I'm sure others on this call do as well, where people sort of start with well, PMO is very, very legacy. We don't need those anymore. We've seen it all the way through agile adoptions where people decide they don't need a PMO anymore. And then you actually realize that then there's that kind of realization when they understand the depth and breadth of knowledge in PMOs and the areas that PMOs are expanding into, all of their BI, all of their insight that they're generating to enable strategic decision making, the work we're actually doing in that strategy space to help make sure everything the organization is doing is aligning. And then, of course, moving into AI, I don't know any other departments that are outside of maybe pure tech teams that have a specialist interest from a technology perspective, but I don't know of anyone else that is diving into AI and looking at how that can improve the organization as much as the PMO are. So yeah, there's loads of food for thought in there. And as I said, that journey from is it dead to, well, absolutely no, we're leading on a lot of stuff was powerful for me, and it resonated.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if AI and good data analytic type stuff is going to happen in the project management space, who else other than the PMO is going to help that get embedded? It becomes another centre of excellence type activity, does it not? You know, it's an no-brainer.
Sorry, I was talking over you accidentally there, but no, I was enthusiastically agreeing with you, Lindsay. And there's going to be two things. One is where the PMO is actually introducing these tools and making them available. But the other thing the PMO can be doing is actually watching out for where some of your projects that are on the leading edge are actually starting to use these things, and just making sure you grab that learning from them and see how you can take learning and things that are working on one project and reapply that across the others. So that kind of dynamic lessons learned and applying it across the portfolio as well, I think.
Yeah, anyway, we keep banging on about it, but can you imagine where we're going to be in this time next year? What this session is going to look like? It's going to be really, really interesting to see actually how it all pans out. July, and it's lovely and warm, and we did a sessions that were we have like kind of hot skills and stuff like that, and actually we'd all delve into the competency framework and pull out knowledge, skills, behaviours, or some of the competencies. And actually, Eileen's favourite subject, and you're probably wondering where she is today. She's actually gone to a Christmas party and she's ditched us. So, you know, she just wanted to make sure that she'd got one in, but even though she's not here to talk about it. But we were talking about, you know, one of the key skills is the ability to learn, because I think we all recognise that in the PMO, we've got so much stuff coming at us from all different angles, not just projects, programs, portfolios, but like John's mentioned, there's data, there's AI, there's business analysis, there's business kind of administration type stuff, loads of different kind of fields that the PMO has little bits of stuff to do or stuff to know about or stuff to at least to be aware of. And she talked a little bit about it's interesting with learning itself is how do we learn, and there's a link there at the bottom that to have a look at if you like. But this was the process about, you know, really good learning and learning that kind of sticks. There is a process, there is a framework that exists in the learning and development world, and this is it. It's pulling this out really quickly. But we've got to be curious, and I think we hear it a lot about at PMO. Oh, you've got to be curious first about AI stuff, curious first about like data. But what does that actually mean? It's just something that actually catches our imagination or attention and makes us want to explore that further. Without it, you're not going to be able to learn. So this is the interesting one about, do we sometimes feel things are forced on us and we've got to learn it? If it's going to stick with us, if we as individuals, we have got to be curious about it enough to want to explore it. Otherwise, getting to that right hand side and being actually learning and discovering new things and being satisfied that we actually really understand it, and also having passion for something, not going to exist without it. But it's a really interesting one. I don't want to go into the ends of these because she talked about it for 10 minutes. We're here rattling through a year. But it is an interesting one, if also not only as individuals, but if you are doing that kind of centre of excellence work, where you are pulling together things like workshops and, you know, pockets of learning for people that are in your delivery organizations. Do you do enough understanding about the way that people learn and how things stick? John, you've been doing a lot of this stuff over the year, haven't you, in terms of teaching and things like that?
Yeah, from both sides of the fence. I'm learning. I've found the year sort of challenging in terms of learning. Things like sort of AI have moved so fast, and everyone seems to have an idea that requires you to sort of as a sort of consultancy that specialises in the PMO space. I need to be across things, but I'm constantly diving into people's claims about AI or the new things they've done, understanding what it is, how they're doing it. Is it new? Is it just marketing speak? So there's a lot of doing that, and then trying to upskill through the academic side of things as well. So I'm diving into a lot of courses through Coursera from the various universities across a spectrum of subjects, and then sort of I've maintained close links with Cranfield, where I did my MBA, and sort of done a few of their sessions as well. So yeah, so much learning, and then playing that back into teams as well. So one of my favorite courses that I taught this year was actually not for PMO people at all. It was for people working within project teams and teaching them what it was like to work in a project environment and getting them to think about looking at things through different lenses, project manager, business side, and everything else. It's great doing those kind of courses as well. So yeah, looking at it from both sides this year. I don't think I've actually finished any courses this year, but I've started tons of them.
I know. Has anybody else done the same kind of thing? I mean, there's so much, isn't there? Time's a problem. But, you know, when we're not sunning ourselves in August, maybe August is a good time of year to be able to, you know, actually do some and finish some of this stuff. Because LinkedIn Learning is the other one, isn't it? That keeps throwing stuff at you. I'm going to put John on the spot here because it's obviously it's hot, but this was the knots of the time. Right, John, take it away. Which one do you want to talk about? Can you remember?
Well, impermeable cylinders was my one at the time. This was talking about, because obviously when we think about PMO, we tend to think about projects, and we've talked a bit about project management already. But we've got a lot of our organisations but the PMO is blurring the lines between operational structures and project structures. Certainly, where we've got software teams delivering continuously. We've got models like SAFe. We're talking a lot about value streams. And one of the challenges we've got where we talk about breaking down silos and building value streams is that the argument for doing that is sort of breaking things down and making the organization more flexible. But what we're starting to see now in some of these organizations that put SAFe in years ago, they've created new problems with that. Rather than having the silos that are sort of vertical, they've created these value streams which are horizontal through the organization, but are every bit as stuck and have the same problems on the boundaries. And it's very, very hard to change them and break through them into other areas. So that was why I was just flagging that we've got this challenge here, which I called impermeable cylinders, where we've gone from these independent silos to actually independent value streams. Same problem, just at 90 degrees.
That's super. I'm not going to go into any of the other ones. Men, because I can't actually remember. Right, so I thought I'd put you on the spot because you're very good at being put on the spot. So into September, that kind of back to work feel after holidays. This is when we kicked off that activity. I'm sorry, it is AI again. However, this was because we're sick to death of people like saying, oh, you know, the future's here, get on board, you're going to lose your job, all of this kind of stuff. And I think we've established that actually the PMO is going to be doing stuff that, you know, around this space. So we had an interactive session, and this is just one of the parts of the board, which is where we think we will be able to use some of this kind of AI, data analytics, technology, all this kind of stuff going forward. This helped us kick off in September, something that we then picked up in October at Finnish Ambassador's Place. And then the next session, which is on Monday, follows on from that one. So we're making a series. This is all coming from you. This is where we started in September, trying to get our heads around it. There was 20 different things that we need to be thinking about, and we've been picking them off. And this was just one of the ones, because we know that one of the selling points or the benefits to this kind of stuff is that it will take away some of the boring parts of the job, that kind of repetitive manual parts. And these were just some of the things that people were commenting on as to what they are either doing or think where it can actually help. So this is just one of them. There's another 19 boards like that we're working our way through. But what we're finding is that even just from October and the outputs that came out of that, the speed of how some of these things are going is making us have to rethink. Oh, actually, I think we need to probably do this. Actually, so it's just I've never seen it like this before. How about you, John? It's I don't know if you remember this session at all.
I do, and I remember the ambassadors bash as well. And it's interesting because some of these things that we were talking it shows how fast this has moved. When we were talking about sort of RAID logs and slide decks and things, fast forward to the November session that we did, and I was actually was able to quickly demo with ChatGPT creating a RAID log by giving it a prompt, and then actually creating a slide deck, which I then presented off in the next session. So that's how fast things are moving. We were talking about it in September. We had the event at the ambassadors place to be at house to sort of deepen that, and then we're already actively using it. It's incredible how fast it's moving.
I just putting into comments there that I love the AI image generation stuff, and every image that you're looking at on the monthly things that has been generated by AI. So we're into October and scary month, and we looked at closing services. This was a bit more of an interactive bit that we're doing. I think it came in the Ask the Audience section. Again, this is one of the ones from Eileen that she's obsessed with, I would say, because again, the service-based approach to PMO is really taken off, and is something that really makes sense not only to people working in PMO, but people that are our customers, and that you're offering services based on what it is that they want, plus stuff that they don't even think that they want, but they absolutely do need. But in order to be able to do some of these things, there's that recognition that actually some services get shut down in order to be able to start new ones. And we had a conversation around that about, well, how are people doing that? Are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And how is it taken? Are you seeing some of this stuff, John, with your customers? New things come on the horizon, which means from maybe a resource capacity we just don't have the time to be able to do certain services. We shut them down in order to be able to do new ones.
It continues to be a challenging area. Everyone wants to add new things in. Nobody ever wants to shut anything down. I think we have an advantage as coming in as a consultancy. We're able to have those difficult conversations that sometimes an internal PMO can't have, and we do that through sort of audits and assessments that we're doing, where we're able to say, okay, you've got all this stuff, but actually the conversations tend to be either, is this still relevant? Does this align with what you're trying to do right now? Or even the other one, which is actually maybe as a PMO, you're spread too thinly, and we should actually consider actively, consciously saying we're not going to do some of these things on the periphery and focus on doing a few core things really, really well for the organizations. So those are the conversations that sort of we're leading. But within the PMO, and obviously I've done both. I've been a consultant and I've sort of been in a PMO. I've run PMOs. It is a lot harder when you're inside the organization to make those arguments for actually shutting things down, because you tend to get a lot of resistance, and it is a hard sell. But it's something we need to do. Yeah. Otherwise you drown.
So into November, and we had a kind of different hot and not. We kind of chose one each, and got the audience to think of it again, just whether it was hot or not. And for this was just for mine, just because John's was John on the hoof using ChatGPT. I couldn't replicate it here, so you've got mine, which is all about tribes, which is about the community side of it in two different ways, really. We were talking about the fact that here at House of PMO, we are looking at some vertical kind of communities of PMOs. So NHS, you've probably noticed that we're doing stuff in that space, and we've just launched the first kind of community around higher education, and we'll be kicking off with a lovely one-day event on the 14th of March 2024 in Nottingham. But again, but it was also about what we'd found is that the House of PMO gets invited or asked to come along to some of those PMO away days. So we know that you're building your own kind of tribes and communities within your own organization as well. And yeah, so we've been asked to come along and just talk about, you know, what's happening in the wider space of PMO, or, you know, what is possible with PMOs, and do that kind of like rah-rah thing for your teams and stuff. But yeah, it's the future, I think. You know, it's with anything, even like, you know, any kind of product or service that you're buying, just generally, that people want to just feel a little bit more, I don't know, just a bit more looked after, just to feel like you're part of something a little bit more. And certainly we've got to think about the younger generation coming into project management as well, because that landscape's changing. And, you know, how can we bring on people, you know, to join our community and tribe as well? So, yeah, it was a nice session to do, I think. Yeah.
I'd also give a health warning here. If there's anyone here who is maybe this is your first time coming across our HotHouse sessions that we do every month, I will just give you kind of a bit of a warning that whilst these events are absolutely free, will continue to be free next year. There's a couple of books on the screen which remind me just to warn you that these can get quite expensive in terms of all the recommendations and ideas that come out of them. Certainly out of these sessions throughout the year, I've ended up buying quite a few books. And by the time you get the more books, then of course you need new bookshelves. Then of course you need, as Eileen did a while back, you need to build a new office at the end of the garden. So just a bit of a word of caution for you if you're considering committing to attending all of our sessions next year, and I really hope you do. Just bear in mind that is the journey you might end up going on, and don't say I didn't warn you.
Yeah, we like reading a lot, so you know, but that's it again about bringing some of the insights from stuff we've read. And in fact, that's a good call to action for HotHouse next year. If you read a really brilliant book, come and tell us on here. We'll give you like 5 minutes. Tell us about what you've read and what you took away from it. That'll make a lovely.
No, don't. I can't afford it.
Yeah. No, but they can tell us. They can tell us about the book that they love. So
I'm joking because I'd love them to absolutely with you on that.
Yeah. So yeah, so that was November, and here we are now in December. And what it is we do each December, over in the House of PMO in the newsroom, you will see that we've done an update on the trends that we set right at the beginning of 2023. We did a bit of an update on that trend article to say, you know, this is what's happened. This is what we've seen in relation to the trends. You can go and have a look at that if you like. But at this time of year, we also come out with the new trends for 2024. And this is what they're looking like at the moment. Yeah, don't want to go into massively into, you know, too much detail on all of them. We've got about 12 minutes left. What I did want to also do, I mean, we'll dip into some. John's going to pick out a few, I'll pick out a few. But is there anything that, just having a glance at some of those, that's missing for you? You know, because I've not written about them all yet. I've still got time for, you know, thinking about portfolio prioritization. You know, these are at 10 at the minute, but some might go below the line. Obviously, we've talked a bit about generative AI in the PMO. That is the term for things like ChatGPT, generative AI. And there's a link with that one is one that Eileen wanted to highlight, was that actually we probably will have those data specialists in the PMO. I don't know if you've seen it. You may have, again, on social media, you'll see that the projecting success guys that are being running apprenticeships in project data analytics are running their first cohort in February, specifically for PMO people who are wanting to do the apprenticeship around project data analytics. If you're not familiar with it, we can certainly put some links out and stuff about it. I know there's a couple of people that I know are already signed up for it. Apprenticeships, if you're around my age, you probably think it's you know, when you were leaving school and you did an apprenticeship. It's not that anymore. Anybody working in an organization where they're playing the what they call the apprenticeship levy, has access to be able to do an apprenticeship, and you do it alongside your current job. So yes, there's a commitment there. However, it's not something that is just purely for school leavers. It is for people that are already working. So you might want to have a think about that. You could be the data specialist in the PMO next year. So John, any of these grabbing your attention?
Which one should I think that sustainability one's been an interesting one because I think sustainability is going to keep growing in terms of, certainly for larger organizations where they need to be publishing their sustainability data and their customers are demanding it of them. Because the organization is doing it, then we need to have those standards across our projects as well. How carbon neutral are our projects? What have they thought about not just sustainability in terms of sort of carbon and everything, but what are the practices that we've got in the supply chain for our project? So I think this is one that probably will come into the PMO, certainly for those larger organizations, to do those additional cross checks on whether our projects are adhering to the values that the organization has set for itself. So I think that's definitely an area to watch. We saw a couple of teams talking about that, and there was a talk at the PMO conference about it this year. So that's definitely an area to watch. I think other than that, the PMO profession, that it's growing and growing and growing. There's more and more interest in the world of PMO. I've always said it's a great place for people to develop themselves. I can't think of another area of the organization where you can come in as a very, very junior PMO administrator type level person, and within weeks suddenly find yourself being in a meeting with senior thinkers in the organization, in project board meetings with senior people. It's incredible the access you get to all different areas of the business in the PMO is quite unique, and I don't see that anywhere else. And then there's the work, obviously, the tireless work, House of PMO, that you guys are doing in terms of setting those standards, the competency frameworks, the services work that you're doing at the moment. So I'm sure you're going to continue to grow there, and it'll be interesting to see what some of the other people in this game sort of do in terms of gradually increasing the professionalism of the PMO space. So those are two that I'm really looking forward to watch how they evolve next year.
Yeah, there's a couple of things on the comments about, obviously in 2023, we released the Inside PMO report, which was about the PMO as a business function. We carry on that along those veins around the number 10 on there, which is the presence of the PMO. And again, how you're seeing, we continue to see PMOs within organisations. It has that presence. But what we're certainly seeing, and it has been the outcome really of that, pulling out that report and listening to how it's gone down in the community. But for a lot of people, it's just hit the nail on the head in terms of what they're trying to do from a kind of portfolio or enterprise level. We've got a session early in January, which is going to be talking more about that in terms of the integrated PMO kind of model, which is what that comment there about in terms of, what's happening, are we taking it further? Absolutely. And it all sits around that there on number 10. Number 6 that's there is actually something that has come out really quite recently. We started the community stuff with the NHS, and one of the things that particular community has come out is some really interesting insights, which is about, well, what does the PMO mean within that particular context of their organisation? So this is just the NHS, but it can apply to anybody else. Because what they were finding is that people within the business find the PMO really valuable and useful, but they can't quite put the finger on why. Really? I mean, that is a problem that we need to really seriously think about. We've got to be able to help people see, be able to articulate it. I think we've got a lot of work to do there. And I think when I say what PMO means to you, I don't mean to you just as an individual. It's the individual, it's to the PMO itself, it's to your delivery functions in which you're operating, it's to your organisation, and actually it's to your sector or domain in which you're working, whether that be NHS, higher education, financial services, anything else. it's interesting because we talk about it all the time that PMOs change because of the context. And actually, what we're finding is that the PMO community in the NHS and also in healthcare want to be able to put out, this is what it means to be in a PMO within this environment. These are some of the specific challenges that if you're a PMO person working in this space, that we might be doing something differently. Yeah, so it's trying to capture that. And I think it's going to be interesting doing some work on that in 2024. There's also a comment about a citizen developer dropped off the radar. And we know we've got a session again coming up on Monday, and we specifically talk about that. That has not been a helpful thing in our opinion. Trying to understand, it felt like it was too hard in that we had to become developers. And actually, we've kind of skipped a step here, which is the PMO understanding this stuff as a user. We're trying to develop something that actually we're not even really understanding what it is we should be knowing as a user. So it felt like it were like, why are we trying to develop this stuff when, you know, this feels like a step too far? It's not being helpful. I know it's still there, but I don't know if it's back. It came out of PMI, didn't it? This whole citizen developer stuff, and they've got I think they've got a training, learning thing around it and stuff, but I don't think it's hit as much as they were hoping. So yeah.
I think the term citizen developer is probably going to quietly disappear. And it did, yeah, it came out of the consultancies, and the PMI jumped on. As you say, they've done some quite good certification stuff around. They put a lot of thought into it, which is quite nice, and possibly a bit weird because it doesn't feel like it's core PMI area. But anyway, the challenges that you have with citizen development are not old. They're the ones that, for those of you who've been around a long time, will remember when everybody had access databases, and then the person who built the access database left and nobody knew quite how it worked anymore. Citizen development is where we've got tools like the low code, no code type tools that allow anybody to sort of build tools in a way that we could only have imagined doing when we were playing with macros in Excel what seems like only a couple of months ago. And the danger with that is, how do we then keep the right controls around it, keep it safe, stop people breaking things in the organization or accidentally releasing data that shouldn't be released. So I think all the challenges around how do we govern and control citizen development are definitely still there, and they're still there for AI just as much as they were for low code, no code. And the flip side, how do we take advantage of all this new technology and all this devolution of power that comes with it, but doing that in a safe, controlled way? And that's the conversation that I think is going to carry on from citizen development into the real world, even though that term is going to disappear.
And just a quick shout out for, I hope it's Carol that's on this session because I see your name. Big shout out to Carol. PMO Communities of Practice, they're rocking it at Parliament. They're doing a lot of great stuff around trying to bring on all their PMO people together. PMO away days, they're getting involved in kind of industry. They'll let us come along and do the session that we did the other week about PMO and project controls. They're doing a lot in terms of that kind of, you know, real good community of practice stuff. It's great to see. And I think, again, if you're in that position and you've got enough people, you know, within your organisation, of course, to make a good community of practice, don't tend to work when there's only a couple of you. You can call that something else there, call that buddying or whatever. But they've done a really good job this year. It's been really interesting to see. So yeah, well, it's shout out to everyone in the Parliament team, Carol. But yeah, it's we continue to learn, and maybe we can share some of your insights about how you're actually doing it and what you're actually doing on some of your away days. I think that might be a nice session next year, so you can share that. But that is trends for now. We'll be giving a lot more detail with some of these areas. But that's pretty much, we're coming to the end, and it's a bit of a call to action. So make sure you get involved in your community. Make sure you help us in driving this profession forward. Look at that messy and complicated roadmap in front of that person. We need help to get along it. Shout about it. Shout about the fact that you give about working in this space, and tell everybody about, you know, I give up my lunch hour, Mr. Boss, Mrs. Boss. to come and do stuff like this, because I'm really passionate about what it is I do. And just make sure that in 2024 that if you have an opportunity to get out and about and come and meet other PMO people, make sure you take it with both hands, because you'll not regret it. John, any final words before we skip off into the wintry scene?
Just to echo that, it all comes back to community. We learn just as much from, I learn just as much from everybody here, from the socials, from meeting up with people in offices, from the emails and the chats that we have on LinkedIn, than I do sort of reading books and everything else. So we need to keep this community of PMO people alive. PMO is often one of those sort of undersung areas in the business, but if we've got these backdoor channels out that between our tribe, then I'm convinced we can carry on making amazing differences to organizations and helping them grow in 2024 and beyond, I think.
So super. Thank you very much for your support, everybody. Looking forward to the last session next week, and then yeah, what's 2024 going to bring. But for now, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, hopefully you have a lovely Christmas as well. So
thanks everyone. Happy Friday and happy Christmas.
Yes.